What is up, everyone? Barricade here, and I'm bringing you guys episode 17 of Gears of War lore. Today, I'm going to be talking about one crazy and very interesting backstory of one of the characters, and that is Alex Brand. Before I get into this, one thing I really want to talk about real quick before I start going into her backstory is kind of insane. It's kind of dark, honestly. It really is. It's kind of a really sad and really crazy look into the coalition of ordered governments, the COG, basically showing how messed up they really were as a type of government, as a type of army. And while not all types of, parts of the COG, all sections of the COG acted like this, it did have some really messed up and dark secrets about them. What I'm talking about here is in Alex Brand's past. She actually used to live in a city called Jilane. Jilane was a city that basically would use women to have babies. It was like, in other words, they had them in a birthing farm. After the locusts started attacking the whole planet of Sarah, a lot of the humans population went down drastically, horribly bad. If you've seen my previous episodes, I basically stated that thanks to the Hammer of Dawn strikes and everything, majority of the human race that lived on planet Sarah was gone. And to try to keep this up, to try to keep the human race going, the COG created this horrible, twisted thing in order to keep the human race, at a high number by making these birthing farms. And one of the main ones, if not the main one, was a birthing farm stationed in the city of Jilane. And that is where Alex Brand was born and actually lived in for a huge portion of her life. She was born in Jilane a little bit before E-Day, so she never really had like a normal life. From as far as she could remember, all she knew was Jilane. That's all she knew was the birthing farms. And I think that was really depressing and sad to read about in the comic books, because Alex Brand is a character in the comic books. She was never in the actual games, but she was a very interesting character in the comics. And one thing that was stated in the comic books was around the age of 12, she was constantly raped by the warden at Jilane, at the birthing farm. And then after that, she was basically forced to try to have babies. They would artificially inseminate her, and then when that didn't work, they would basically rape her again and force her to try to have babies. By the time she was 18 years old, they realized that she was barren, which in my opinion kind of makes me mad. I feel bad for her because, after all these attempts, you would think she was barren, but of course they wait until she's 18. And then after they realize, that she's barren 100%, that she can't have children, they send her off to boot camp to become a gear. And after she became a gear, she basically joined, the COG and would do missions. And she became like one of the well-known soldiers in the COG. She rose up to becoming a sergeant, which is actually the same rank as Marcus, if you didn't know. And she was a very good soldier. She would just run in and flank the enemies like crazy. There was a part in the comic where Marcus and his squad were basically pinned down by snipers and tickers, and she literally just ran up the side of a building, flanked the crap out of them, killed them all, and saved, Marcus and all of them. And that really gave a really cool insight on her character, because while people would think she's weak because she's a woman, she actually turned out to be a really huge badass that would just basically fuck up Locust like nothing. Like, she was just really, really good soldier. And the thing that was really cool about her, the one thing I really liked about her in the comics, was that even though all this stuff happened to her, and basically she was used really bad by men and treated horribly bad and abused in all these horrible ways, she didn't hate men. She didn't like horribly hate men, and she didn't think every man was a dog, and she wasn't very like crazy when it came to stuff like that. That was one thing that was really interesting about her character. Even though she was horribly treated horribly and abused, she didn't think all men was like that, and she would even defend them. And there was a part that I really liked, because Dom is my favorite character in Gears of War, and there's a small exchange between her and Dom, and just from the way they talk to each other, you could tell that she didn't dislike Dom. She knew that he was a good guy, that he was just looking for his wife, and that she just respected him. You know, she didn't hate him. She didn't think that he was a dog or anything or a rapist or anything. But the thing that was really cool about her and Marcus though was since Marcus was like a really well-known gear and a well-known soldier, she kind of thought of him as a bad soldier in a way that he might have known about Jilane and about what happened to her, and basically just ignored it because he's a soldier. And one small exchange I got right here in the comics right here is she's talking to Marcus face to face, and she tells him, all the medals they've given you, I'm sure you know about Jilane. And he says, I don't, not personally. And then she says, so you're a liar and a bastard. Basically trying to blame him that he knows about Jilane and everything. But one thing that he tells her, which was really cool, is he goes, look, there's two ways to win this war. Make gears faster or kill grubs faster. I'm a lot better at the second one. So yeah, fine, I'm a bastard, but I'm not a liar. Basically showing to her face to face that he didn't know about this horrible thing, all this crazy stuff that happened to her. All he cared about was getting rid of the locust, and he's not this type of guy. Yeah, he's quiet, yeah, he's tough, yeah, he's pretty freaking violent, but he's not someone sadistic that way. And while she might have thought of him that way when she first met him because he was like a decorated soldier and you know he was like the son of Adam Phoenix and all that, he wanted to show to her that he didn't care about any of that, and he respects women in that type of right, which kind of makes sense because the only girl that he's ever really cared about was Anya, and we've never seen him ever treat women bad in any way. And from then on, they go into this mission where they actually go back into Jilane, and they get to see what happened to it after the locust attacked. And what happened was basically the locust attacked, either killed or caused the rest of the cog to evacuate this, you know, birthing farm in the city. But the thing that was really insane was that the women that were being used for this had babies, and they actually lived in that facility as the stranded, living there. And they would defend that city, and they turned this horrible place that was basically used for rape and force women to have children into their home, which was really interesting to see because, you know, overall it's a really dark and crazy story, but they were able to change their past from something as dark to that to a home, and they would watch the children and protect them, and they considered themselves separate from the cog, that they were basically stranded and they just wanted to be left alone with their children. And the thing that was real crazy is the mission that there was. I don't really want to go too far into the comics. You know, I'll post the link in the description to, you know, where you guys can buy it yourself if you want to read them. But basically, the gist of what happens in the comics is they go back to the Jilane to find out this type of signal that was there, and it just turns into this whole fiasco with fighting the locusts and stuff. And then they end up running into the women that live there, and then on top of it all the women there hate the men, so they don't want to help Marcus and Dom and everyone. But Alex acts as like a mediator between the women that hate the men and the men themselves, and it basically just became this huge confrontation between the locusts and them escaping the locusts, and Jilane basically being destroyed at the end of it, and the women having to find somewhere else to live, and they do, and it's like a happy little ending for all the women there. But the one thing that I just really liked about Alex Brand was she was a very interesting character because she was one of the few characters in Gears of War that had one of the worst backstories ever, one of the most messed up backstories. Like, I'm not saying all the other, you know, the other heroes in the series didn't have messed up backstories. No, we had this horrible crazy sadness with Marcus and his parents. We had, you know, Dom and Maria, and we had, you know, all this other crazy stuff that's mentioned in the books, in the comic books. But her story stood out to me because it was actually very dark, and I just really wanted to shed light on this character for those who don't know why she was just a random character that was added in Gears of War Judgment. And that's why they made her as a playable character, as you can see in this video, because fans really liked her in the comics, and I really would like to see her more in the actual game for once. But I think the reason why they never showed her in the story mode is because she's so young. She was basically like probably like 3 or 4 years old when E-Day happened, and by the time of Gears 1 and 2, she's barely joining the cog. And while they could have had her in Gears 3, they just didn't. But yeah, overall, great character, great backstory, and I really advise that you guys go and check out the comics because they're really interesting and very fun to read. I will post a link to her comic book, the one she was in the description. But anyways, guys, I'm running out of time here. If you guys like this video, please definitely hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me what you guys think. Did you like the story behind Alex Brand? You got any suggestions for future Gears of War lores? Leave them in the comments below. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching and take it easy.